Welcome back, everyone. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and I'm continuing on a little short series of videos on the Kenmore 158.1941. And I wanted to kind of go back when I showed you the underside of the machine. I was showing you when you first get a machine, you're just trying to assess, okay, what kind of shape is it in? Is it full of dirt? What does the belt look like? And I showed you underneath how you can turn the hand wheel, because this machine is not locked up and frozen. You can turn the hand wheel and you can inspect the belt underneath when it's on the belt pulley. Well, now, and I think we've done this once before, but I'm going to take off the side panel so that we can actually look at the belt from the side. Remember, there are two belts on this particular model. Many of the Kenmore models from the 70s have this set up, and this is just another friendly reminder. Even though my bottom tray on this particular machine was aluminum, many of them are plastic, so you have to be careful. The side panel on your right, which is basically the panel that covers the side of the machine where your hand wheel is, this panel is made of plastic. So again, even unscrewing the screws, and definitely when we go to put them back, be extra gentle. Don't go crazy. Right? Don't use a motorized screwdriver. It's not that hard to do. So I'm just going to turn this, and it didn't fight me that badly. And just nice and slowly, I'm going to do the other side. Now, I haven't taken them all the way out yet, and there's a reason for that, and it has to do with making sure that I have access to a magnet. So what I mean by that is, obviously these screws are made of steel. The panel is plastic. And I have a little magnet here, and what I'm thinking of doing, I think I've done this before. If you don't have magnetized screwdriver bits, I took the bit. If you have a screwdriver, you can just do this with the screwdriver. I'm taking the screwdriver bit off of the handle here because I don't need the handle anymore. The screws are loose. What am I trying to do? I'd like to do one of several things. I want to be able to get the screws out and not have them fall. Now, they'll probably fall onto the table, yes. Having to hunt for screws that go flying is not a fun time. So save yourself that unnecessary chore. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my screwdriver bit, and we'll see if I can get the end even just a little magnetized. When you attach a piece of steel, and it has to be ferrous metal. This does not work with aluminum. Obviously, aluminum and copper wouldn't stick to this anyway. And I'm just turning it. I want to get a little bit of magnetic pull on it. Now, if you don't do this enough, it may not work, and you may still drop the screw. You can purchase magnetized screwdrivers and screwdriver bits. I think they're made with magnets. I don't have a set, but I have had decent luck by doing what you're seeing me do here. Now, this effect that you're seeing, it doesn't last forever, obviously. This is just a steel, high-quality steel screwdriver bit. But I'm attaching it to this piece here. It looks like an old antenna. It's actually a telescopic, it can stretch out, it retracts, but it basically is used for getting things that are you basically dropped in a hard to get to place. So let's see if it will do what I want it to do. What am I doing? I'm going to take this just in my hand because, again, now if it doesn't, I don't think I'm getting enough magnetic pull. So what else can I do? I can take my magnet, right, in my right hand. I'm right-handed. But anyway, whatever works best for you. And I'm going to turn the screwdriver bit as I continue to loosen the little screw here. But then I'm going to have my magnet right there so that when that screw pops up, it's not going to fall down into the pulley system. Again, I want it right here. Actually, I think I'm in the way where you can't see. Let's try switching hands here if that will make it easier. I want to make sure you can actually see what I'm doing here. Okay, so you can see I'm turning the screw with the screwdriver, but I'm going to have this magnet right here. It's going to want to stick to the screwdriver bit. Now, watch that. See, as it came out, I now have the screw attached to the magnet. It did not go flying. I'm done with my vacuuming, so I can just set the screw down. Preferably put screws on any little pieces that you have when you're doing this hobby. Put them on a towel or in a little tray with a towel. because they like to go bouncing, and that's not a good time. All right, I'm going to do the same on this side, right? So I'm turning the screw because these are short screws now, and I've got my magnet ready at the ready to make sure that I don't lose the screw. And again, the magnet will want to stick to both the screwdriver bit and the screw, but that's okay. And I keep turning, but again, as it comes up, be ready, because if you don't have your magnet close enough, you may lose that screw or have to go hunting for it. And now I've got the magnet attached to the screw, but I've got my flashlight on my head here, so I'm trying to make sure it all works. Try to make this visible for you all. It's kind of an awkward. There we go. And I have, of course, now I have screwdriver, magnet, and screwdriver bit, magnet, and screw. All right. Again, if that happens to you and you don't do what I just showed you and you say, oh, I don't have a magnet, I don't care, chances are the screws can go flying. They can end up getting lodged in the top of the machine, and sometimes you have to turn it upside down and shake it, or they can get lodged down below. We're going to drop the camera now, and you're going to see what down below means. Here, of course, my panel is just loose, so I'm going to change the camera angle for you all. Let's see if we can get things in a better perspective for what we're about to look at now. You're basically, I have a tripod here that I'm adjusting to get, hopefully, a better perspective for you all. I want to get it close enough. All right, let's see what we have. Now, this panel, this side panel, what should happen is it should simply, and you saw it wanted to fall, I'm just going to lift it away. Now, it has two little prongs, which interestingly enough are metal. Look at that, they even screwed them. Now those, I don't typically take these off, and I would not. Again, that plastic is old. What is that, a half-century old now? So be gentle, you know. It was designed to come off, obviously, right? And there's a power switch, so when I go to put it back on, this one is fairly, sometimes they'll wrestle with you like a dog with a bone or whatever, but just be patient. This one just comes right off. And there you have one of the secrets of this Kenmore's great power. Remember, I've told all of you that Sears had a lot of sway back in the day. They were very powerful. But the Bernina company, like many brands of sewing machine, even Singer, they only sold their machines through the independent channel, which in marketing is simply independent businesses, small businesses. Now, Singer may have had some corporate-owned stores. I don't know the exact business model, but you could not buy them at a lot of chain retailers. And so Sears said, oh, well, we'll get ourselves a machine that can have some of the features of Bernina and do a lot of the stuff Berninas can do. And I think, as you all have heard me go on and on about these, I think they succeeded. Because when Sears wanted something, they got it back in the day. All right, so notice we have one belt. It connects to the beautifully made hand wheel, and then it goes down to a small pulley. And then the pulley behind it is somewhat larger, not as big as the hand wheel. And then the second belt transfers down the power, or it's actually connecting to the little pulley on the motor. So I actually kind of went in reverse order. So you have the motor pulley pushing, moving the belt, which has these lugs. Some people call them cogs, but they're called lugs. They look like little gear teeth. And then it comes here. The motor is actually turning this pulley, but then the little pulley it goes back up here. This system was devised because apparently it helps to transfer more, this is the theory, more of the power of the motor to the machine. And because I don't have the mental chops to know exactly how this works, I've actually read it and learned it and forgot it. But the main point here is that when you use this system, it's very similar to Bernina's system, and Bernina used it, and that's why Berninas are known as pretty darn strong sewing machines. Maybe they're not a 1591 Singer, but as multi-stitch machines go, Berninas are known to have a lot of great piercing power. It's one of the things that made them famous. Well, this machine is, has a lot of the same design features and beautifully made, finely crafted in Japan. 1970s Japan manufacturing was amazing. So, now that I've rambled on about how awesome this design is, let's talk about the belt itself. Now, this belt could have been replaced. I don't know. It would not have been replaced recently because you can get replacement belts for these. They're generic. You don't go to Sears for these anymore. But the originals were black. A lot of the replacements will be kind of a funky orange beige color. But what we're going to do is we're going to inspect the belt. Okay? Well, let's take a very close look. Now, I know that the belt still doesn't look huge here, because I can maybe zoom in just a little bit more, because if we get too close, you won't see anything. Now, what are you looking for? I already showed you when we were looking at the lugged side, this angle, when we were looking down below in the other video with the motor. But now let's look at the side of the belt. Okay, the belt has, I think the originals were made beautifully, because I think there must be some sort of fiber. What it is, I don't know, some sort of a synthetic fiber in the center, and then you have all of these little rubber or some sort of rubber compound lugs. I don't think they're silicone, but whatever they are, they're pretty tough. Now, I've had these machines before where I've had to replace the belts because they were dry rotted. My best guess is that, okay, and I think I have just the right light here. All right, when you look at this, notice I'm getting some reflection. You should be able to see if this belt was past its prime, you would start to see cracks. Sometimes the cracks will be very tiny, almost like crazing, which are very fine cracks, and like a crackle finish, if you know what I mean by that, with paint. But eventually, the cracks get bigger and bigger, and even sometimes you'll see chunks of the belt missing. But this belt, my gosh, that's a pretty darn well-preserved belt for 50 years old, if it is the original, and I suspect that it is. One of the things that you'll be able to tell pretty quickly when you look at an old machine is where it was stored. Sewing machines, as I've mentioned many times, they actually enjoy climate control comfort just like we do. And not too much humidity, because they can get oxidation and rust, and not too much heat, because the heat will do several things. It gums up the old oil and turns it into a glue, but it also harms things like cords, rubber plugs, anything made of that's not metal. If it's plastic or rubber, all of those materials have a shorter lifespan than metal, this wonderful aluminum here, but that lifespan can be longer or shorter depending on how well preserved and taken care of, stored the machine was over its life. When I see this right now, and I'm going to change our angle here. Let's take one more look at the lugged surface, and let's see, hung up on something here. Let's see if, this is really close up, right? Let's see if you guys see any, because I do not. I've got my flashlight here. I can see the fibers. I see the lugs. I don't see any cracks or splits. If I see any at all, these belts, you actually never be afraid to change a belt because they're not expensive. You can get them. You don't have to go to the brand, because many of these brands are long gone. Their original parts are long gone, but they're generic replacements, right? I can get replacements for these belts. And when I overhaul a machine, I do a full overhaul. So my client expects that. They need to be able to buy the machine and know, okay, the belt's fine. Does that mean a belt can't snap? No, someone could stress it. Maybe it's you don't see any cracks. I don't replace the belt automatically, because this belt, based on what I'm seeing here, this belt could run for another 10 years. I'm not kidding. The belts don't break easily as long as, again, they were preserved or they were stored in a very friendly environment. High heat, putting it in an attic space or a garden shed, oh my gosh, it really rapidly ages these soft materials. So again, these belts look great, but this is an easy way to look at your belts. You want to inspect them. Don't just guess and you say, well, it runs and the motor moves, the belt must be good. No. Belts will continue to function you'd be surprised how long a sewing machine motor belt can run, even when it's, it's kind of ragged and it's got cracks. Sometimes you will see, and I didn't see any of this down in the tray when I took it off, sometimes you'll see crumbs, little crumbs of dry rotted rubber that start to fly off and wear off, but none of that is here. So again, these belts are not expensive. You can get them on eBay and other online sewing sellers. You just have to know the size, right? So if you're not sure, you take the old belt off. If the old belt is still all one piece, that's fine. You can measure it. You just mark it with mark it with a piece of chalk or something you can see, and then you just roll it along a tape measure till you get the length. And if it breaks, that's okay too. If it breaks, if you have a nice clean break, you just lay it out and measure it. It's really quite simple. But again, if your belts look like this, there's no need to replace them. In fact, these belts are just in incredible shape. And this tells me either the machine only got limited use, but even with limited use, it still had to be stored indoors. And I think that the owner of this machine kept it nice and comfy indoors all of its life. And that is hopefully going to make my job easier. Famous last words, knock on wood, laminate, because I'm going to be going through, and as you know, as sewing machines get more complex, and this is certainly in a mechanical sewing machine without a computer, this is a very complex machine. It does lots of cool things. And as machines get fancier, well, they get more complicated mechanically. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to last as long as, say, an old straight stitch Singer. That's not true. But overhauling them and getting them to work again can, not always, but it can be problematic if it was, if the oil has gummed up, if it hasn't been run forever. And I don't know, who knows? I could have all kinds of problems with this machine. I haven't even tried to put it through its paces yet. Again, I've tried to instill in all of you, when you're working on sewing machines, go slow. Approach this as a project. Don't be in a hurry. You can get frustrated if you're in a hurry, and you might break something that you didn't have to, right? You probably think, gosh, he's done lots of videos on this Kenmore style before, but I just never tire of them. They are truly one of the greatest sewing machines ever built, and certainly in the category of multi-stitch machines. They are magnificent. And thankfully, because Sears was once, back in the day, so big, and they sold so many, they sold millions of sewing machines, right? They were really the only giant competitor other than the White Company. They were the only giant competitor to Singer. All the other companies were wonderful, but they were smaller. If you bought a Bernina or a Necchi or a Pfaff in North America, you were a much smaller subset of customers compared to those who bought Kenmores and Singers and the White brand. But anyway, I appreciate all of you watching. I basically wanted to show you all, again, some of the things that I love about these Kenmores and how to look at them. Some of you are on the lookout now for these, right? And some of you, maybe you have one and you've never opened it up. You thought, oh, I'm afraid to open it up. As you see, it's not that complicated to get access to and to inspect. And maybe you have one, maybe you have a machine, and maybe it's been in your family forever, or your grandmother had it and you finally got a hold of it, and you're like, I wonder if this thing runs. One of the things that I like to do, and you've seen this in many of my videos, I go through the machine, I vacuumed it out now, I got the dust out, there may be a few dust bunnies left, but the bulk of it is now clean, and then I can tell just by looking that this machine is pretty darn dry. Now, when a sewing machine when I don't see a lot of wet oil, that tells me it's just sat and hasn't been used. Thankfully, I don't see any oxidation, right, which I have seen before in some machines. But again, it has some oil residue left, or it probably wouldn't move very much. But basically, it is thirsty, right? Like the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz, it just needs a good oiling. So that's going to be my first test of its abilities. Now that I've gotten the dust out, I'm going to be oiling it, just giving it a nice, and I'll basically make a video on that. We'll show how that's done. And then I'm going to, because it is moving freely, I'm not getting any resistance. to anything, including all of my controls. They all seem to move lovely. I got lucky on this one, right? Sometimes you get lucky. Someone took care of it, and the person I got this from told me they're having tension issues, which is very rare for Kenmore. Usually, if I have tension issues to solve, they're usually on other brands. But again, I don't know. Maybe I do all of this and it won't so, and we'll have more to investigate. But you can see that even with a machine with all the complexity of a Kenmore, basically, let's get the lint out. Let's get the dust out. And then in the next video, I'll start oiling it, and we'll see what you can do. Thanks for watching, everybody.